Welcome back to the Hella Inspired Podcast. Today we got Rami and Jehron. How y'all feeling?
Feeling
All is
great.
well, man. All is well. It's a pleasure to see you again, bro.
That's what's up. Good to see y'all too. So let's get right into it. So around like 3 months ago, y'all had your first IRL stacked up summit. And I'll just say from my personal experience, even though I'm not a computer science major, I had a good time and I met a lot of good people too. And I saw some people's like lives get changed right on the spot. So how does that feel for y'all? Because I know it took a lot of planning and just from the start of ColorStack to where it is now. How's that feeling?
Yeah, I mean, it was a beautiful feeling of just like bringing the vision to life. I feel like I said that so many times that weekend. That like when we were first, when we were first thinking about the organization as a whole, like this was a core component of it, right? To have people coming together in person, not only advancing their careers, but really building relationships with people that aren't on your campus and that you'll stay in touch with and be part of your tribe for years to come.
Facts.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because before the inception of ColorStack, something like an in-person conference was like one of the first things that we were thinking about doing. And you know how planning goes, you plan to do this one thing, and then the natural path takes you down this completely different route.
Yeah.
But it was really beautiful that almost 5 years later we came back to that original idea of bringing these members from all over the country together, and like Jehron said, just building relationships and building community in person. So it was cool just to kind of go full circle back to this moment.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. So let's take it back a little bit. So I got a question for both of y'all. And we'll start with you, Jehron. Where are you from?
Oh yeah. How far you want to go back? I was born in St. Thomas.
Where were you born and raised?
Beautiful island of St. Thomas. Wasn't raised there, but
Okay.
grew up in started out in Brooklyn and moved out to Long Island, New York.
Okay. The best borough, New York, Brooklyn.
Look, I don't do all this borough stuff, man. I'm from the West Coast. Y'all could have the borough battles. I don't know
Yeah.
that. I grew up in LA. Born and raised. Went to college in New York, of course, with Jehron, upstate New York. So I got a little taste of you guys' New York battles and all that. But now we keep it calm in LA. So yeah, born and
Definitely.
raised.
Definitely. And Jehron, at 16, you started fixing iPhones and iPads. Like, how did that start?
Yeah. So the long story short was that I had a research paper that I had to get out your junior year. I don't know if they did this everywhere, but we had a junior year research paper. And it was like the week of, like it was due that week. My laptop, to me, broke, like shut down, crashed. From my perspective, initially, I was like, okay, this thing is bricked. But then I, started to like just tinker and just figure out that like it was on. It's just that like the display was very, very low. And so I realized that, well, first I tried to get it fixed and they were saying it would take weeks. I got to ship it out. I got to do this. I got to do that. I wouldn't get it back by the end of the week. And this was before, I guess, Google Drive and like do that type of stuff was like very, yeah, I guess not. I guess I wasn't using it at that point because I'm
what
like,
year was
I can't use. This was 2015 or 2015 or 14.
Jordan said, "Damn, my bad, Unc. That's crazy."
Yeah, I don't know about that.
What did you mean before Google Drive? What does that
Before
mean?
I
Google
know
Drive.
this was when you had like V1, V2 as just the title of the docs, right? Like this was your first version, this was your second version. Google Drive was definitely around. I just probably wasn't using it at the time for this particular thing. But yeah, so if I didn't have the laptop working itself, I wasn't gonna be able to submit it. So trying to make this short, but like basically realized I had to either fix it myself or rewrite the paper. And so once I realized that like, it's the display is just like not lit fully and everything else is working, I started looking that up, and that was like a common problem. And all you had to do was replace the display. So you could buy those on Amazon for like $50. looked up a YouTube video, fixed my laptop, got the paper in. And then from there, I was like, okay, what else can I do with $50 in a YouTube video? And so fast forward for the following year and a half, I had started fixing the screens of iPad. At that time, like everybody's screen was cracked. You always knew two people.
Exactly.
The crack phone screen. Nowadays, that it's like titanium. But yeah, so I just everybody, once a month, once a quarter will crack their phone. They call me up, I fix it.
Yeah.
And
Did
then
you start charging?
Customize. Oh, of course. Yeah, from day one I was charging.
I was about to say mandatory.
Oh, for sure. From day one I was charging. Got the screens from different like supply. Like at first it was just like online, like Amazon, whatever. But then I like found like quote unquote OEM, if you know what that term means, OEM suppliers. So literally factories that are either in China or wherever that are producing the same things for Apple. We're able to get them in bulk and like get the prices down, and then started customizing things with like different colored backs when the backs were like not glass. So you could do a green, you could do a red. I had partnered with another student that I met at this camp who had an engraver at his crib. So we were like engraving the back of the it was a whole thing.
I didn't know that.
Wow. Yeah. So Cornell, how did you both end up at Cornell? Like, was this your first option, or was it just something like, I'll just go here?
I'll let Jehron answer.
Well, yeah, I'll tell. Mine is brief because it was it was the only college I applied to. So yeah, it was the only college I applied to. I did early decision. But yeah, once I got
because your mind was only set on Cornell. Like you like, if I don't go here, I'm not going anywhere.
I mean, it was two things. One, I had a friend that already sold me on Cornell, so like that's why I went to tour and like was interested. And then when I did my tour, I actually got pooped on by a bird. It was the only time in my life. It was the only time in my life to this day that I've been pooped on by a bird. So that meant to me that like this was the place, and so I did it.
So if anybody watches this, the thing to take away is if you get pooped on by a bird, do whatever's happening in that moment.
Yes.
Do it. Right?
Yes. Take that luck of that day and just use it all up. Do lottery tickets, do everything that day.
He said, go to the casino. That's funny. Yeah, for me, I did not get pooped on by a bird. This was not the only school that I applied to. I mean, definitely coming from LA, it was kind of a stretch. I wasn't necessarily expecting to get in. So like even when I got in, it was kind of this weird thing where they said something like a week early, but it wasn't like the official thing. So I was like, okay, they're flying us out for this like diversity engineering week for like newly accepted things, but we didn't get the accepted, like the actual acceptance yet. So it's like, okay, what's going on? So I was like, you know what, let's just, my dad was like, you should go and just see what it's like, even if you're not sold on it yet and stuff, especially being so far from home. And then, I had ended up going to that kind of diversity week and just met a lot of other Black and brown students in engineering that were pretty much newly admitted. And the campus was beautiful. Like that was definitely one of the first things that had got to me. But then also I was like, oh shoot, like there's two other people here that I met. They're like, oh, there's a room together. So it was kind of like we just jumped into this thing and just had a nice time bonding and stuff like that. So that was like at that point I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sold on coming here.
Okay, so no birds, no birds.
No birds. No
birds involved.
No birds. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jehron, when you got to Cornell, you noticed a lot of Black and brown kids struggling or dropping out of computer science. And eventually that led to you having lunch with Rami. So was this the first time you guys met? And
we did have lunch prior to that. We did eat prior to that. It wasn't the first time we had lunch ever.
But what was that conversation like? Like, Rami, you like, man, I'm about to go back home. I can't do this.
It was kind of one of those interesting things where like literally, and I would tell like, even like when I was like talking to my parents and stuff, like literally on Monday, I'd be like, yeah, like I'm going to be a computer science major. And then on Wednesday, I was like, actually it's going to be like electrical engineering. And then like by Friday, it'd be like, you know what, I'm operations research, which like, on campus is like the quote unquote easier CS that has like some different focuses and stuff. It's not quite that, but so literally like every couple of days I was like, actually, no, I'm not built for that. I'm gonna just go a little bit less. And Jehron at that time was just like, man, I don't think I know anybody that's as passionate, when it comes to coding as you. Like you literally took this, like, I took my first CS course at Cornell. It was like this introduction to Python. And, you know, I was just having a blast, and Jehron was like, bro, who cares if you're not doing well? You're literally so happy like doing this thing. So he's like, why would you let people scare you and say like, oh, there's these weed out courses that like, oh, just wait till you get to junior year, and then, you know, you're gonna see then it's gonna be a little crazy. Jehron was like, bro, like your passion is stronger than anybody I've seen. So, you know, don't let that deter you.
Yeah. Jehron, how did it feel like pouring life into him? Like, bro, you got this.
It's funny because at the time, I wouldn't say in that moment that conversation was unique in the sense of like me sitting someone down and like that's what I was doing. Like this is like part of the reason why that happened was because it was known that I was doing that thing, right? So it was like, okay, we gotta have one of those lunches, right? So I think in the moment, like just the lead up to having that conversation seemed like just another day for me of just like trying to keep folks inspired and motivated. But I will say that like the conversation itself, plus I would say in the prior to that conversation, the observations of Rami's energy, which led to what I said in the conversation, I feel like really it was just different. Like there were a bunch of other people that I had those same conversations with, and they either didn't continue or didn't stay or did it but weren't as motivated, didn't turn out the way Rami did, right? So I think that was part of that one of the early moments of like realizing that Rami himself is different and like someone who I think just loves it a little bit more, has a little more drive, a little more passion for it. So it took obviously time for skills to develop. Like he said, like this was his first computer science course in college, right? And a lot of people, not a lot of people, but at least at Cornell would take classes before. So it wasn't immediate where you saw like, okay, Rami's like actually built different, but just from like an energy perspective, like you knew that I knew that it was worth, keeping him motivated and inspire him to continue.
Definitely. So you both ended up as co-presidents of a student organization, underrepresented minorities in computing. What was that dynamic like with that dynamic duo? First time like really leading something together.
I mean, so like just back, like rewinding a little bit, like how that even came to be was, so our sophomore year going into junior year that summer, we were both interning. Jehron was at Google. I was, across the country in North Carolina at Fidelity. And like we were just like FaceTime. I don't know if it was every day, but it almost felt like it, like just after work or maybe on the weekends and stuff like that. And we were just talking about like, all right, cool. Like we're doing this internship, all is well, boom, 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 whatever. But like, all right, now when we get back to school, let's try to kind of change the dynamic for underrepresented CS students. And so we were just thinking about it, like, okay, like what is NSB doing on campus, National Society of Black Engineers? What is SHIP, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, doing? And then, there was this organization that was very, very small. It was literally like 5 or 10 people at the time, underrepresented minorities in computing. And we were like, you know what, like, let's just pull up, like, and just like pull up to an e-board meeting. You know what I mean? Like, let's just like unprompted, nobody invited us. Like, let's just pull up and see what's up. And, from that point, like we weren't looking for like any titles. We were just like, yo, we just want to change the dynamic. Like that was literally it. Like we don't even have to be on the e-board. Like we're just going to pull up to all these meetings and try to like, play our part and get people to come and feel supported and have this community. And that was kind of that, like that first semester back. I think that was junior year, first semester. We literally went to literally every single meeting. We were telling people to pull up, and it was just building community. Like there's no like special thing. It was literally just building community. And from that point, it was like, okay, now people start to see the impact that we were having. And, that's when we thought, okay, maybe we should assume the role of co-presidents that following semester. Jehron, I'll let you take it from there, but that was a little bit of the
I think that was a good summary. I will add, I don't think I ever talked about this publicly, but Kevin will probably if Kevin ever sees this, he'll probably get a good laugh out of it. But the prior to that summer, actually, I had gone to like one e-board meeting just to sit in. Like I talked to Kevin, I think it was the founder, and I just wanted to sit in on an e-board meeting. And I literally I went to one, and then I like stopped going because I was like, I disagree with everything that they're doing, and like I was a very like, no, this is not the right way. And then he kind of sat me down at the end of this, or not sat me down, but like over, I think it was Messenger. We were kind of going back and forth, and he was kind of like, we really want you to kind of be involved, or like, you know, it's hard to like get corporate money without doing things for them. It's like, he was explaining to me how things work basically. Cause I was kind of like, what are we doing here? And then he was like, no, here's actually how it works. Yeah. While still, for me, I still had a vision for how things can be done differently. And I understand that it had to be started in a certain way. So, you know, I think what Rami said that I want to highlight is that we came in not with this mission of seeking to just inflate some titles or like inflate our resume or like do these things for status. Like we literally just wanted to help. And so I'd like to say as best we could, we just did those things. And we literally didn't have titles until we became co-presidents. And I feel like we just were there just doing stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think that says a lot about like how much we cared about the mission. And also the respect that we had for what was happening prior and the leadership there. We didn't want to step on their toes. We didn't want to make them look bad at all. We just wanted to help. So we like did all this work, and like one could argue it made them look better, right? Like your co-presidents, the org is growing and stuff like that. And we didn't want to like take anything away from them. We just saw so much potential, right, in the mission, in the space, and just wanted to drive that home.
Exactly. And did you feel like y'all had support from the school, or was there any kind of pushback? Okay.
Absolutely. I actually just wrote an email to, for a different reason, but the dean currently at Cornell Tech, Dean Morissette, he was the dean of CS at Cornell undergrad while we were there, the CIS department there. Mm-hmm. And I mean, what we learned, I think it was a little bit more after the fact about how much just money he had raised to basically seed the org. Like he was like, okay, we can't, he basically, from my understanding, he basically said that like, we can't as a department start a student run org. It's never going to organically make it, you know, it's not going to organically work that way. Yeah. So we're going to try to attract those student leaders and support them. And on top of that, he raised an annual fund to send 30 undergrad underrepresented students to the top of your conference every year. Okay. So that was like from day, like before URMC became URMC, he was already raising money on behalf of the mission and trying to like get the ball rolling. And so, I mean, between him as a dean, and then we had, I mean, I'd done a lot of stuff with like the like core courses, like those professors, like to talk to them about like TAing and like different things like that, and some problems that students were having. Like, I mean, it was, I don't feel like I ever felt pushback from our department on anything we were trying to do.
Yeah, I remember pulling up to the top of your conferences and like just meeting people from other schools, and they'll be like, "Oh, like of course you're from Cornell. Like your whole school is pretty much here." Like, literally, it was just like mad URMC people. Yeah, half the conference is you guys, and then the other half is the rest of the rest of the school. So like, day one support was always there. And even as we grew, like again, what Jehron said, they were like, "Yo, you guys are doing this way better than we ever could. So we're just gonna kind of try to support you, from the outside. And if you guys need some resources, and even just on what Jehron said, like even on kind of our what were those called? Advisors, right? So we had like advisors that were professors, and like these were some of like the top like, I mean, if you're taking like an algorithms course like anywhere on in the country, like it was probably written by this woman who was a professor at Cornell, who was the advisor. So we had a bunch of support from pretty much day one.
Yeah, that's what's up. Shout out to them.
Yeah.
Sure. Some advice for somebody that's probably going into their first year in college, or in college but kind of looking for some sort of direction. Can you speak on the importance of having internships in internships in different states away from what you're used to and kind of outside of your comfort zone?
100%. I mean, yeah, like it's kind of a interesting time in the market because there's actually there's a lot less new grad roles that are open just in the current economy, and a lot of these companies kind of strategy is like we're going to have a large internship program and try to convert as many people from internship to full-time as possible. And so like when it comes to especially when you're thinking about post college and securing that first job, like internships are just absolutely critical, because like that is your foot in the door. But beyond that, like the school system and education system is good to kind of get like fundamental understanding of generally your field and everything like that, but like there's nothing that's going to be more applied than actually doing the job. And so when it comes to internships, specifically software and CS related internships, it's like you're going to learn so much in that actual role that's going to prepare you for at the beginning of your career. And so like it's just something that's pretty much necessary in order to to just prepare yourself for life after college. Yeah.
Definitely. And Jehron, what about you?
Nothing much to add. I think to your point about the advice, maybe I think Rami summed up the status or the state of internships today. But my advice is really just like there's a lot more opportunities now than ever to get work done that is enriching and kind of trial by doing. No matter if it's a formal internship or not, there's so many ways to practice and kind of build skills. So focus mainly on that. I mean, that's all that matters in the long run in terms of employment. So yeah, I mean, I think I did a lot of internships as well, like every summer, and like I did that and it worked. It was great, but I was also doing a lot of stuff on the side, even at internships. And I think that's what really makes you talented and a strong candidate.
Definitely. So let me get on to this question I've been waiting to ask y'all for a long time. So this inspired me, and I love that y'all made this choice. But I just want to know.
We're inspired, bro. Come on. We're inspired, man.
I want to know what this conversation was like with your parents when you told them that you had a full-time offer that you were turning down to pursue entrepreneurship. Because I know that conversation didn't go.
Yeah, I'll speak on that. I'll speak on that real quick. I mean, yeah, like immigrant mentality, especially with my parents. They came from Cairo, Egypt. Just immigrant mentality. It's job security. It's looking out for your family. It's if you have something good, don't give it up. You know what I mean? Anything to keep your family, secure and stable. It's all that's the game, right? And it was funny when I had first told my dad, so I had the full-time, software offer at Microsoft, and, was talking to him about, the offer and all that stuff. And when I first brought up the idea, he was like, pretty much like, yeah, you're absolutely nuts. And like pretty much like I know for a fact that him and my mom were like kind of just praying in the background, like, okay, like, we hope this is like
what do we do?
Wave, you know what I mean? This is like a 1 month thing. He's just gonna go through his thing, and then he's gonna like come to his senses almost. But what was super interesting is that like that initial reaction compared to the decision ultimately that happened maybe 3 months later. It was just conversation that I kept having with my parents and like keeping them updated on like, here's what I'm actually doing. You know what I mean? Because like from the outside, it's like you don't understand anything. And it's just like, all right, like you're just, almost making a silly decision and not thinking through this. But as I kind of looped them in on the journey of like, at the time I was in this startup accelerator at Cornell and was, sending them updates and just keeping them in the loop. They started to see like, oh shoot, the thing that I was building at the time was very applicable to general community building. And so like, they were like, oh shoot, like we could use this in our community in LA to like connect people and do X, Y, and Z. And so like they started to actually see it a little bit. And so by the time I had made that decision, they were actually on board and like actually were supportive. And, at the time we had graduated pretty much we didn't have a graduation because it was COVID just in 2020. And so, they were also happy that, okay, I'm moving back home. I don't necessarily have to worry about too many expenses. And so it ended up working out in that sense. But yeah, the initial reaction was definitely like, if I was at home, like might have gotten smacked a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, at least metaphorically, but it was an interesting journey.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think the highlight of that story was just like bringing them along. For me, like I feel like the assumption is that it was a very shocking, hard, like tough conversation, like all that stuff. But I think for me, probably a little bit more than you, Rami, because what I started was ColorStack, which they had known for 2-3 years at that point. As URMC, I should say. So that work that we were doing, any accolades, any anything that was happening with URMC at the time, like my parents knew about.
Right.
And so I think a couple of things really kind of helped my conversations with them, which was one, that I got into this program called NEO, and it effectively is a network of technology, like veterans, like VPs, CTOs, founders, and then they try to like bring in these like young, talented CS students, like put them in community together to accelerate the students' careers, help them start companies, help them join startups. And so I got into that like a year prior. And so they already knew that, like, okay, Jehron's gonna, like, he's kind of good. Like, we shouldn't be worried as much about him and the decisions he makes because of the social capital I think that I was building, and the decisions I was making prior. I think they just trusted my judgment as well. And so that happened, and then it was a year-long process of trying to fundraise and figure out what ColorStack was going to be. And at the end of the day, I told them that what I'm trying to do is raise money to get a company to basically put me on their payroll to start ColorStack. So it's just like I got another job. Like it wasn't even as risky as it may seem. And so once I told them that was the mission from like 9 months prior to actually doing that, it was just the next step. So like the moment that contract got signed, it was just like, oh, okay, like this, like hooray, like this is actually the thing that we were working towards, because they were on that team with me. So yeah, I think that was easier, but like even just now, at this point in my life, but I'm sure that they were thinking about this at that point, because they would say this to me now, is that like we know you're gonna do whatever you want. Like it's like I think they already got to that point in college too, because I like stopped going to classes, and like I would do things that like obviously they didn't want me to do, but they knew at that point that I'm gonna do it. So yeah, I think I built a lot of trust. One, give them a lot of signal that like I'm gonna be okay in the long run. So even if I didn't frame it in that way and bring them along, I think they would have trusted. But I am very intentional about that, just generally in life, like trying to keep them as in the loop as possible, so that nothing is a surprise, and just that trust, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I read somewhere that about a year after you started ColorStack, you had around 4 full-time employees, and you raised a little over $1 million in funding. So what was that feeling of, like, I know you were already in leadership roles in college, but now you're managing people's like lives, like real people.
Real people, right? No, it's not kids. It's definitely not kids.
Like, these are people who have to sustain themselves.
Yeah, it's a whole. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was saying, how did your mindset sort of switch from a leadership role in college to running a real company?
Yeah, I definitely changed a lot as a leader. Rami could attest to this. Other people that were kind of close to me at the time, like I definitely turned into this more people pleasing, scared, kind of trying to just like reduce the risk of failure, more than like trying to operate from like what are we trying to achieve, and like chasing some ambition. And so very early on, because of that, like first time, and like you said, like taking care of people's livelihoods and all that stuff, I was just like, dang, like I don't want to make no mistakes. Like I don't want to, like, I'm just trying to make sure everybody's good and nobody hates me and I don't get sued and like all these different things. Like I was just so scared. And so I led from that place. And I think a lot of lessons learned, a lot of hard lessons, and just like things that helped me grow as a leader. And I just learned, I would say, like 10 years before the average professional gets to learn it. I had to learn it in 1 or 2 years. And so, it was definitely a challenge. I think now I have a different relationship with leadership, people management, and running a company. But it was hard. Like I don't want anybody to get me wrong. Like that was hard. Like that is a hard thing to do. Especially as your first full-time job. It was not easy. There's a lot of, battle scars, I would say I have, like emotionally, mentally, as a result, but I'm here still. And that just speaks to, one, my passion for the work, but two, like I genuinely want to be a great leader. Like I actually feel like in from one lens, it's a blessing to be able to go through all that in my first 4 years being a professional. Because now like I could like now I'm so much better of a leader as a result.
Exactly.
And now I can just lead well, or at least in a better position earlier in my career. So I have more years of like leading well, I guess is how I think about it. Versus learning this when I turn 33, 35, and then getting the chance to be that person.
Yeah, you got into it. Yeah. And Rami, where were you in your own journey at this time? And why did you decide not to join Jehron with ColorStack initially?
Yes.
Let me tell you
Great question.
Jehron to this day, Jehron probably asked me this question, huh? Jehron to this day still gives me crap. He said, "Don't ever start anything without me again." No, I mean honestly, it was obviously a difficult decision. I mean, this decision happened literally in college. This was pretty much second semester of senior year, and so like again, like Jehron said, like at that time we were so checked out of school, man. Like it's not good advice. We're not gonna tell anybody, oh, you should do this.
I feel you. Trust me.
Not literally. So we were so checked out and working on these different things. And so at the time, I was working on, a startup idea and was kind of in this accelerator. Meanwhile, I was still like making some of the earliest pitch decks for ColorStack, but like I don't even know what the name was at the time of the pitch decks itself. But like when we were trying to like initially get some of these corporate partnerships, we were like, oh, let's try to talk to the Googles and the Microsofts and like get them to kind of, incubate ColorStack and with some of those initial partnerships. So like I was still very much involved at that time. It was obviously a difficult decision, but we had seen some like positive signs for the startup that we were building at the time. And so it was one of those difficult decisions. I was just like, okay, ColorStack, I have full 100% faith and confidence in Jehron leading ColorStack. Like there was never a doubt in my mind that wasn't going to succeed. And so I was like, ColorStack, it will be there no matter what. Like that meme will be there no matter what. And so decided to kind of jump into the sea myself. But throughout that time, after we had actually shut down the startup that I was working on, and that was like in 2021, I want to say. Ever since then, like I've still very much been involved with ColorStack. Like even very very early days when we were doing like this kind of program model. Jehron would actually come to LA. We would like jam together, working on some programs and trying to help ColorStack members as much as possible. That was happening on the side while I was still working at another job and stuff like that. So it was just a matter of time in terms of when to come back to ColorStack.
Definitely. Yeah, that's what's up. Yeah. And Jehron, this is an important question, I feel. Why did you choose to structure ColorStack as a nonprofit instead of an LLC?
Yeah, I mean, I got tons of questions on this before we even incorporated. Like, why do it this way? Why do it this way? Why do it this way?
Yeah.
I think a lot of uniquely as a founder, a lot of decisions that you're going to make that are going to be the right ones, are going to be gut decisions, right? Because you are also the idea of the company starting was also likely a gut decision. It likely wasn't some rational, logical thing. And I think that's unique to founders that like certain things are just, if the idea is a kind of like flows from you, is some sort of representation of you in some way, then some of these decisions will be as well. And so there's no way that I would have founded ColorStack in a for-profit context, because that's not how I envisioned it. Like that's just not what I wanted to build. I didn't want to build an agency or some sort of model that would line my pockets at the end of the day. Because if I built as an LLC, for example, and this is a good example of like the difference, or at least the incentive, right? There's, I think, what's his name? Warren Buffett's partner. He said, like, show me the Charlie Munger. I think, rest in peace to him. But he said, like, show me the incentives, I'll show you the behavior. And so for me, I don't even want the chance, like, to be able to think about profit first, right? So for example, you have, if I had an LLC, and in that first year, I think in the first year we raised over at least over $500,000. I think it was over 750,000, right? And our
Okay.
costs were like 250,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
I could have pocketed $500,000 if it was LLC. Like this is like
Yeah.
factual. This is legal. This is like if it was an LLC, a for-profit entity, and we raised
Yeah.
that much money through earned revenue and whatever. Yeah,
Mhm.
these expenses. At the end of the day, at the end of the year, I'm entitled to that money.
Yeah.
But that's not like that's not why I started this
Yeah.
company, this organization, and that's not part of the mission. And so even if I said, oh, I would never like use it and I would just go reinvest it, but like I could always do it if I wanted to. And I don't want that incentive, right? Like, because it's an option. When you have the nonprofit structure, if we do really well and get raised $3 million and our costs were $1 million, we get $2 million more to go spend and invest in furthering the mission. That's all you can do with it. You can't give any shareholders any, you can't give yourself it, you can't give a board member it. So what other option is there? What other incentive is there to do with the money? It's to put it back into the mission. And so
definitely
tons of conversations about that. But at the end of the day, one, it was a gut decision. Two, I just like didn't want that incentive to think about profit first.
I'll just add to that, not on the decision itself, but like I'm thinking about the impact that would have had if you went the other way in terms of where ColorStack is at right now. If you talk to any ColorStack member, they're gonna tell you like our bread and butter is community. Like our Slack, like right now as we speak, our Slack, somebody's asking a question and somebody else is responding within 5 minutes. Somebody is bringing up a random topic and people are jamming and having a good time and everything like that. Everything is community. Now, if you think about how ColorStack members would interact if they knew like, oh shoot, like if we do this thing in the back of our minds, you know, and maybe it's just like ColorStack wants us to do this because they're gonna profit more and do XYZ. If you know, if there's some new initiative, it's like, oh shoot, like they just want more, but like they're just trying to, you know, squeeze whatever, you know what I mean? It takes away from that community vibe that we've built, which like again, if you talk to anybody, they will tell you that is ColorStack, the community and the vibe that we've kind of created with that.
Yeah, exactly. And somebody I met at the summit was basically telling me like the group chat that you all have, they were saying that y'all just be in there talking about random stuff. They're like, oh yeah, Jehron and Rami, we talk to them all the time. They be in there talking about random things. Like, yeah, they're cool. So it's not like a situation where they don't feel like they can reach out and be comfortable. It's a safe space for them to ask questions and still have fun at the same time.
Can I actually just take us in a different topic just because you made a point that I think I have a hot take on, but not really hot, but just I wanted to make sure it's given some light. You talked about how you talked to the student and they said that we were in there and it's just like, yeah, they're always there. It's not some huge gap between leadership and the org and the students. And I think that's another reason why I felt like I had to start ColorStack too, because a lot of nonprofits, generally speaking, but definitely nonprofits focused on the students that we serve. The founders are not even computer science grads, right? Like let's start there. They're not even computer science grads, one. And two, there's certain orgs that weren't like CS based orgs before that just added it on because there was opportunity to get more money from their partners, or so like very inauthentic. And I think what breath of fresh air and just a beautiful moment for our students was like finally an org that's built by us for us, right? Like he literally just graduated from CS. He knows all the things that we go through, and he's here with us talking about things. I was helping students with discrete math for like 2 years after I founded the org. Like I could have just like lived this CEO life and delegated everything and moved on, but like even to this day, I'm still in the Slack helping people answer certain questions, and it's just like you don't get that level of care for the people, which leads to how you build the organization and its programs if you don't have that lived experience. And I think this space, there was a lot of people building in it from before that weren't in it, and they just saw there was opportunity because there was so much money in tech and people cared about diversity, at least financially, that there was nothing really authentic built for these students before ColorStack.
Yeah, that's a big fact.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And so let's talk about some of these relationships and partnerships that y'all have. Not to leave anybody out because it's a lot. Duolingo, eBay, Morgan Stanley, Netflix, LinkedIn, and many more. Not to leave anybody out once again. How does that feel to actually start working with these companies and getting support from these companies that you use on the daily and that you once looked up to?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it for me. It wasn't too much of a wow moment, just
Yeah.
because a lot of these companies, the relationship and the transition that I had personally was that I was recruiting for them myself, and now they
Okay.
were partnering with us in a different capacity. So, um, I think, to answer your question, but then actually spin it to like what the students probably experience. First is that I think it's been cool to just like get this level of respect and just acknowledgement for the work from organizations like this, where some of them knew me before, but some of them just found out about our work and was like,
Yeah.
dang, like we have to partner with ColorStack. So I think that there's definitely a deep sense of pride I have in like what we've been able to accomplish, such that companies are like speaking about us in rooms that we're not in and telling their peers, and then those peers are coming to us saying like, yeah, we know we got to partner with you because of all that you've done. So
Right.
that's a lot to be proud of there. I think to your point though, when it comes to the students, I think there's definitely a kind of like gap in awareness of what you can do and where you can work in the world generally, not even just with computer science. So I think for a lot of folks that aren't in network, definitely if they're first gen, things like that, they don't realize that a lot of the platforms that you use, you can actually work at that company,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
definitely a thing that I learned in college. And I think to this day, I think we're acting on that and kind of changing that narrative where it's like, no, we're not just going to make Twitter, Black Twitter is not going to just make Twitter what it is because we're just users of it. Now you can actually go be an engineer at these companies or build your own. Right. And
Yeah.
so like that is what I'm most excited about, not just partnering with these companies, but in the long run, showing our members and Black and brown communities as a whole that like you can not only be the builders of these things that we use day in and day out, but you can also build the next one that everybody will use.
Exactly. And I feel like ColorStack, and I want to see how you feel about this, but I would say it's a form of like leverage
Mm,
because you could have took a different route and went to
mhm.
go work for one of these companies and built an organization from within. But I feel like with ColorStack, you have built all these relationships and you have the trust from all the students. So it's like the organizations have to come to you
Yeah.
and kind of have to share their resources because the students trust you and you have that community that's tight
Hmm.
knit and everything. So yeah.
Yeah. 100% agree. That was actually one of the offers we got too, was for me to come in and build some like diversity program for a company.
Yeah, that they can control.
Yeah. Never wavered on like, that's not
Mm,
what I'm doing.
yeah, that part. So these numbers could be off because it's old data, but the Color Stack family represents over 4,500 Black and Latinx computer science students from over 700 schools across the country.
Definitely a little off, but
Definitely off.
we'll, we'll,
Definitely
Definitely
we'll,
off.
off.
we'll update,
Definitely
we'll
off.
update you on those numbers.
Yeah. What is your plan to keep supporting these students, but to expand the community more?
So first let's get that
Let's
number
do
now.
your
You
fact
said
check.
you said 40. You said 4,500.
4,500. I
We
knew it was way off. It didn't feel right
we
me saying
could
that.
we could almost 3x that. We could almost 3x
Almost,
that. It's
almost.
a little over 12,000 members now. A little over
Okay,
12,000. So this
that
was a
part.
big year.
Yeah.
Yeah, this year was a big year for us in terms of
So
Yeah.
growth.
Google needs to get the stats right.
So I'm saying. No,
Yeah.
and just what's really beautiful about that too is like we don't do like any marketing of like, oh, come apply to ColorStack. Like
Yeah.
literally everything is word of mouth. Or
Yeah.
like if John is posting an update on LinkedIn, it's not like, oh, come
Mhm.
apply. It's literally just what's it called? Yeah, so in terms of supporting members long term, like John and I were actually just having this conversation a couple literally like last week
Mhm.
or maybe a couple weeks ago, and we were like, yo, if we continue at this rate of growth in 10 years, like it's not inconceivable that like there could be 100,000 ColorStack members, which is like insane to think about. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's not something that's like obviously that would be a very high rate of growth, but like,
Mhm.
you know, with how many new, this is a cyclical space in general, so there's going to be new members coming in all the time because,
All the time.
you know,
Yeah.
of graduation and all that. And so it's like, that's not actually a crazy thing. And so in that world, there's gonna be probably 80 to 90,000 people that have already graduated, quote unquote, alumni of ColorStack, and then the rest is undergrad. So we've done pretty well in the undergrad space in terms of supporting them, connecting them with internship opportunities, helping them through their classes, building that community space for that, right? What
Yeah.
we're just starting to scratch the surface on is actually alumni, right? Your
Mhm.
career is literally just starting, and we ideally want to be there for the entirety of it, right? Like, you imagine a ColorStack member that comes in, has their first internship, and then 20 years later, they're the VP of engineering at name your company.
Facts.
And so we want to support you throughout that entire journey. And so we're already starting to work on ideas for alumni, like in person, more in person type of connection spaces. And so kind of, you know, testing some of these ideas in even like New York, where a lot of alumni are at, trying to do these in person events and even virtual events just to engage with members longer term. But yeah, ideally, even partnerships will start to expand to, hey, not just, you know, internship and new grad opportunities, but think about, all right, now you're trying to recruit for a mid-level engineer, senior engineer, staff engineer,
Yeah.
you know, pivoting into that space a little bit. So naturally, the community is going to look a little bit different. There's less touch points than the current, you know, undergrad. How the undergrad interacts, they're literally in our Slack every single day, posting messages. Obviously, alumni is going to look a little bit different than that, but yeah, it's something that we're actively building out right now. John, I don't know if you want to add anything there.
Programmatically, I think that's spot on. I'll just add, like, as an organization too, we think a lot about like how does the organization scale to support that scale of students. And so, you know, we're a small team. We accomplish a lot.
Yeah. Shout out to everybody on the team that I
Yeah,
met
for
too.
sure.
100%.
For sure. But you know, in the long run, like, if I do my job right, the org isn't dependent on any one person or personality, right?
Yeah.
Like the systems and the partnerships and the structure and the process and like just the things
Mhm.
are what makes ColorStack, what will make ColorStack special in the long run, not necessarily the people, the individual people that are working at the org. Like, that's like a big priority for us. As much as people matter, as much as like our big thing is community, like,
Mhm.
you know, life is long, people come and go. Like, we want to make sure that ColorStack as an entity will live long, and continue to support this scale at different levels.
Exactly. Okay. Okay. Last question for both of y'all.
Mhm.
Outside of ColorStack, well, I can't really say outside of ColorStack because you invested so much. Personally.
We don't got lives outside because I can tell you that.
But what really like inspires you?
That's a great question.
I could start. I'm really inspired. I kind of reading it as motivated too, right? Like, what gets me going, like genuinely just like solving the problem of um untapped potential. Like,
Okay.
I didn't want to just call it helping people because I think that's just like very philanthropy, charity vibe. But like, I love solving problems generally, but the particular problem that motivates and inspires me the most to like continue to work at is just like untapped potential. Like, whether
Yeah.
it's intellectual, relational, like there's so many different things I notice. I'm just like, oh, that could be better, or you could be better, or like we could be better. And I'm just like, I like solving those problems.
Facts.
Honestly, I feel like for me, there's like no joy that like I get more than when I see somebody that was like in my position, like where they're at right now, and
Yeah.
like me just knowing like, yo, I made it to the other side. Like I promise you, like it's gonna get
Yeah.
better. You could do this thing. Like, to me, like even we were at a conference this literally just last week in LA. and just talking to some of these students that are like a little bit deflated or like, you know, not feeling, you know, the best about where they're at. And I'm like, if this was 2018, I'm literally you. Like, this is like, we're in the same shoes here. So just knowing that, like, okay, I can actually help these people get to the other side because I was kind of at that same position. That's very, very motivating and inspiring to me.
Exactly. That's what's up. And I just want to let both of y'all know that I'm not a computer science major, but after leaving that event, I wanted to change my major.
It's not too late, bro. It's not too late. It's not too
Never
late.
too late, brother.
Because like what I've built, it feels like I didn't know anybody before I came. I didn't hear about ColorStack either before I came. Yeah. But once I came, it felt like I was like a part of the family, and it was so cool. And it wasn't like some boring corporate conference. You feel me? Like it was actually fun, and you learned a lot too. So I just want to say a shout out to y'all with your building because it's magic.
Appreciate you.
And everybody needs to know about ColorStack.
I agree. No notes there.
I co-sign that. Yeah.
And even Jehron, I don't want to stir up anything, but I was talking to one of my friends that goes to Morehouse, and he has a student organization that is around. I just think it's Black students in tech, and I was telling him about ColorStack, and he was like, yeah, I wanted to get introduced to Jehron. So he could tell me more because it would even be interesting to bring that to Morehouse.
Listen, we welcome new chapters. We welcome new chapters.
That
would be dope. And thank you for spreading the good word, man.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, I appreciate both of y'all for pulling up and talking to me, and I hope I get to see y'all next year.
Of course,
absolutely.
Shout out to everything you're doing, bro.
Yeah, okay. And lesson of the day. If you get pooped on by a bird,
100%.
That's the sign.
Come on, man.
I'm gonna literally go outside and be like, "Where you at?"
Like, where's the poop?
It could all be so simple. It could all be so simple.
Right. Yeah. So, all right. Appreciate y'all. I'll talk to y'all later.
Thank you, Jordan.
All right. Thank you, bro.
Peace.